Have you been thinking about trying the Autoimmune Protocol diet or AIP, but you're not quite sure if it's going to help you? Maybe you've heard that it's super restrictive and you're not sure if you're really ready to commit to eliminating all of those foods and drinks, especially bread and coffee. I get it. It's always a little scary when we think about making changes that can affect our day-to-day life. And by the way, if you're not sure what AIP is, take a moment and watch this video because I'm going to give you all of the info about the AIP diet so that we're on the same page. But today I want to do a little storytelling with you. I want to share some real life experiences from the women that I've worked with just to give you a broader perspective of what really happens when you commit to about 60 days on the Autoimmune Protocol diet. So in order to do this, I've combined different elements from these women's stories, the struggles, the wins, the troubleshooting, and even some life-changing breakthroughs. And they will be represented by one fictional person, Jessica. Now, her story reflects the real-life experiences of several of my clients, and I did this so that you can see a well-rounded example of the AIP experience in action so that you can decide whether or not you're ready to give AIP a try. So let's dive into Jessica's story. Jessica is a mom of two. She runs an accounting business while she's also trying to keep up with the nonstop demands of life. And for years, she's felt just kind of off. She was exhausted all of the time, no matter how much she rested. She started gaining weight despite watching what she ate and trying many different types of workout programs. Her hair was thinning, which made her really self-conscious. Her joints ached, and worst of all, she couldn't sleep through the night. Now, if this sounds familiar to you, and if you're experiencing some of these symptoms right now, comment me below. Jessica knew that something was wrong, so she went to her doctor like many of us do, and she was honestly thinking that maybe there's something wrong with her thyroid. So she asked her doctor if he could run some labs to check on her thyroid, and test after test came back as normal. Her doctor told her, "Your thyroid looks fine." And this is because they only ran a TSH test. This is thyroid stimulating hormone. And this really frustrates me because TSH is only a small piece of information about your thyroid. It's like having one piece of the puzzle, but being expected to know what the full picture looks like. You just can't. Does that make sense? I've had this happen with several of my clients, and if you've been told something similar by your doctor, click on the like button. But Jessica knew that something wasn't right because she was having all of these symptoms. So she decided to look for a new doctor, and it took her about 2 years of really pushing for answers before she finally found a doctor who agreed to run a full thyroid panel. And that's when she got her diagnosis. She was diagnosed with Hashimoto's thyroiditis. So her new doctor prescribed thyroid medication, and for a little while she did feel a small improvement. But the flare-ups didn't stop. She still was feeling exhausted and inflamed and just kind of stuck. She wanted her life back. She wanted to feel like she used to, not tired all the time. So she did what many of us do. She went to Google and she started Googling ways that she could take control of her symptoms. And that's when she came across the AIP diet. And at first, Jessica was really overwhelmed. She started reading about all of the foods that she would need to eliminate, like gluten and dairy and nightshades and processed foods and coffee. And she thought, how am I supposed to do this when I'm taking care of my family and I'm running my business? And that's when she came across my Autoimmune Harmony program, and she gave me a call and we started to work together. Now, one of the first things that we did was to figure out how to transition Jessica into the AIP diet in a way that felt sustainable for her. Now, some people are ready to just dive right into the elimination phase, and Jessica wasn't, and that was okay. So we took 6 weeks to gradually remove the inflammatory foods one step at a time. Now, Jessica was basically eating a standard American diet when she came to me, and she was used to grabbing these quick processed foods to just get her through the day. And the idea of having to spend more time in the kitchen really worried her. So instead of throwing her into a strict, overwhelming meal plan, I showed her some simple ways to make the AIP diet work for her lifestyle. We focused on what she could add, not just what she had to eliminate. And I showed her some fast and easy meal prep strategies so that she didn't have to spend hours in the kitchen cooking. And I gave her a customized meal and snack collection with recipes and a meal plan and grocery lists that she could print out and follow without feeling overwhelmed. Now, one of the biggest challenges for her in the beginning was adding in new foods that she was unfamiliar with, that she wasn't used to eating. And one of those foods was fish. She never really ate much fish before, and she wasn't really excited to start, but once I explained to her about all of the anti-inflammatory benefits of wild-caught fish and how it could help to calm her symptoms, she decided to give it a try. And guess what? Now she's eating fish about 3 times a week, and she actually likes it. And this is something that I see happen when people try new foods on this diet, and especially when they eliminate foods like sugars and processed foods, their taste buds adjust and they start craving these new foods and enjoying them. And something that really surprised her was that her family didn't fight her as much on the changes that she was making as she expected. She started integrating AIP friendly options into their meals. So she swapped out frozen French fries for roasted sweet potatoes, and her kids actually started asking for her food. Now, the first 30 days on the AIP diet weren't easy, let's be real, but they were transformative for Jessica. This was when her body was starting to detox from all of those processed and inflammatory foods that she had been eating. Her gut was beginning to heal, and she started seeing little signs of progress. But like most people, the journey wasn't a straight line. There were lots of bumps along the way. So when Jessica first started, she was ready to commit. She was ready to hit the ground running. But by day 3, she was wondering what she had gotten herself into. She told me that she thought this diet was supposed to give her more energy, but she kind of felt like she had gotten hit by a truck. And that can be completely normal in the beginning. And this was because her body was adjusting. The first few days, she really felt exhausted, almost like she was walking through mud. She was experiencing a lot of cravings, and one day she caught herself kind of standing in front of her pantry, just staring at this bag of potato chips and debating whether or not one little handful would really matter. And she was also dealing with some mood swings, and let's just say that her husband was getting the brunt of that. And this is the part where a lot of people start to question everything. They think, should I quit? Do I really want to do this? But I reminded Jessica that this was just temporary. Her body was adjusting and her microbiome was rebalancing, and she was detoxing from all the foods that had been keeping her body inflamed. So to get her through it, we just focused on the basics. We made sure that she was getting enough nutrient-dense foods and that she was staying hydrated and that she was giving herself permission to rest. I also had her add some electrolytes to her water, and this made a huge difference in her energy levels. So by the end of the first week, she noticed that the cravings weren't as intense, and she noticed a tiny bit more energy. And this is because her body was adapting. By the end of the second week, Jessica was starting to see some real changes. For the first time in years, she wasn't struggling to fall asleep when she went to bed. Her sleep still wasn't perfect, but this was exciting. Her brain fog started clearing. And before AIP, she kind of felt like she was always walking in this daze, but now she felt sharp and more productive and a little bit more like herself. And then there was the bloating. One day she realized that she actually didn't need to unbutton her jeans after eating, and that had not happened for years. And this is because her digestion was starting to improve, and this constant discomfort that she was dealing with was fading, and she felt like she could get through her day without that heavy, sluggish feeling. But even with these wins, she was still having some tough moments. She was really missing some of her old comfort foods, and she felt like she constantly had to say no to everything. So we did a lot of mindset work. We were working on shifting her focus from what she could have instead of focusing on what she couldn't have. By week 3, things were getting even better. Jessica's energy started to come back, and before AIP, she would kind of hit a wall around 2 o'clock. And she would need to drink coffee just to function. Does that sound familiar? I've totally been there. But now she wasn't even thinking about the coffee. And she noticed that her skin was starting to clear up too. She had always dealt with some breakouts and some redness, and she noticed that her complexion was looking a little bit brighter and calmer. But the biggest thing was that by week 3, she felt like she was in control of her cravings. She wasn't noticing these really intense cravings anymore. And she actually texted me because she walked past one of her favorite coffee shops and she wasn't even tempted to stop. And that was a huge moment for her because up until now, she really felt like food controlled her. But now she was making choices based on what made her body feel good because she was recognizing how much better she was feeling. Now, another challenge that she was noticing was some food boredom. She was getting tired of eating the same things over and over again. She had kind of gotten into this rut of eating the same breakfast and the same lunch because she noticed that she was feeling better and she found some foods that she liked, and she was just kind of doing the same thing over and over again. And she was also noticing that social events were still making her feel nervous. She even turned down a dinner invite because she wasn't really sure what she could eat. So we tackled that head on. I sent her some new recipes to kind of mix things up and helped her to start diversifying the foods that she was eating. And I walked her through how to order at restaurants without feeling awkward and reminded her that this is just a phase and it wasn't going to last forever. And that she was laying a long-term foundation for healing, and she was going to have a lot more flexibility soon once the elimination phase was over. So that really helped her. And by the end of the first month, Jessica really almost felt like a different person. For the first time in a long time, she was starting to feel good in her body. She wasn't having digestive distress or brain fog. But the biggest shift she noticed after the first month was not physical, it was actually her mindset. She realized that the AIP diet wasn't really just a diet, it was actually this tool that was helping her to feel like she was finally in control of her health. She wasn't just in survival mode anymore. She was actually starting to feel like she was thriving. Now, if you're listening to Jessica's story and you're not quite ready to dive into the full AIP diet, but you still want to start making some small changes to calm your flare-ups, go ahead and check out my Leaky Gut Clean Start program. It's linked in the description box below. And it's a self-guided 6-week program that is going to walk you through some simple step-by-step habit changes to support gut healing, which is a key factor in your autoimmune flare-ups. Each week, you're going to adopt 2 new habits with a clear guide that will help you to stay motivated and stay on track. Plus, you're going to get a 4-week meal plan and recipe guide with delicious gluten-free meals that will help you to ease into your transition toward the AIP diet. I've also included a few extra bonuses to help you to make lasting changes. And the best part is that it's all under $50 and you're going to get instant access once you sign up. So if you're ready to start moving towards the AIP diet, go ahead and grab the Leaky Gut Clean Start below because it's going to help you to take the first steps towards calming your flare-ups without having to fully commit to the AIP. Okay, so let's get back to Jessica's story. The results that she saw after the first 30 days on the AIP diet was just the beginning. The next 30 days is where the real transformation happens. So by day 45, Jessica was noticing even more positive changes. She was sleeping through the night. And for the first time in years, she actually woke up feeling truly rested instead of dragging herself through the day. And this meant that she could actually enjoy her mornings instead of relying on multiple cups of coffee just to function. And this is a big one, her hair started growing back. She had been so self-conscious about this, and she was really excited because she was noticing less shedding in the shower, and her hair was actually feeling stronger and healthier. It was a huge confidence boost for her. She also had the energy to be present for her family. So instead of feeling too tired and exhausted to do anything fun, she started taking walks with her kids after dinner and playing with them outside on the weekends. And she felt like she wasn't missing out on those important moments anymore. And she was starting to really feel like herself again. Jessica told me that she finally felt like she was in control of her health instead of being at the mercy of her symptoms. And that alone is life-changing. Something that we really worked on together was fitting the AIP diet into Jessica's everyday life. She really didn't want to feel like she had to be a hermit while she was on the elimination phase. She wanted to be able to go out to eat and travel and spend time with her friends without completely derailing her progress. So we worked through strategies that would help her handle these situations with confidence. She started calling ahead to hotels to ask them for a mini fridge so that she could store easy to grab foods. She would find restaurants that had options that worked for her so that she could still enjoy the experience. She even took a family trip to the beach, and she told me that she stayed 100% on track without stressing out. Now, when it came to socializing with her friends, Jessica had been a little bit nervous about going out with them because they didn't quite understand why she was making these dietary changes. But we worked on how to confidently communicate that to them without it feeling awkward. So she learned to say things like, I'm focusing on anti-inflammatory foods right now, and it's made a huge difference with my symptoms. Instead of just saying to them, I can't have that. It made a big difference. And she even was able to host a dinner party where she made some delicious AIP-friendly foods that everyone loved without them even realizing it. After about 60 days, Jessica's symptoms had become very minimal, and she was finally ready to reintroduce foods strategically. The first reintroductions actually went pretty smoothly, so she was able to reintroduce egg yolks and seed-based spices like cumin and paprika, which made her meals a lot more flavorful, and ghee, which gave her back that rich buttery taste in her cooking. But not every reintroduction was easy. When we tried to reintroduce dairy, she had an immediate reaction. She noticed some bloating, some stomach cramps, and a headache. So instead of panicking, we were able to take a step back and wait a few weeks before trying to reintroduce dairy again. When she added nuts, she felt a little fatigued. So instead of cutting them out completely, we experimented with different types of nuts to see if certain ones worked better than others. Throughout this process, Jessica was able to create a personalized diet that worked for her body. And the AIP diet was just the beginning. Complete healing goes beyond just your diet. And that's why in the next video, we're going to talk about how the AIP diet is just one step in your healing process. And I'm going to talk about what the other steps are that you need to take in order to stop your flare-ups and feel better. See you in the next one.